Welcome to the E-Show with Neil Ravin. Founded in 2013, the EHL has become the college placement leader on the East Coast. Sit back and learn more about the next step in your junior hockey career.
Welcome to the E-Show, presented by the Penalty Box Foundation. The Foundation's mission centers around their daily motto, we take care of our own, as they help out all of those within the hockey community who've experienced a catastrophic event. Learn more at penaltyboxfoundation.org. What's up? My name is Neil Ravin, and this is episode number 115 of the E-Show. On this week's episode, we preview the upcoming EHL Frozen Finals at Schneider Arena on the campus of Providence College. Kicking things off in the weekly rundown, the E-Crew discusses a pair of entertaining wildcard games, plus why all 6 EHL teams have a chance this weekend in Rhode Island. Further along in the EHLP discussion, this week's round robin includes 4 total teams, making it the largest championship event in EHLP history. As for the Fantasy Challenge, the unofficial champion is now officially official as Lauren earns her first crown. Then finally, in the last What to Watch for segment of the year, we go bold by each giving a bold prediction on what we think may happen this week in Providence. What's up, guys? Guess what time it is?
Frozen Finals time. They're going to say it's overtime.
Well, hey, you know what? That should be the name of this postseason, though, right? Like, man,
yeah, the name of this episode, overtime.
The number of games that we had go to overtime this postseason. I mean, when I look back, we don't know what's going to happen here in Providence yet, but this has to be the best postseason in EHL history.
We can blame Trevor for some of those. Like,
oh God,
the amount of overtime games have been at is ridiculous. We had, even when him and I were on assignment with the Hockey Night people, TD Garden, we had like 3 or 4 overtimes, and like Trevor was there. We're like, that's
weren't they double overtime too? Didn't you have like a couple double overtime at the Garden? Sandwich had a double overtime.
There was only one. The rest were all just regular.
The Trevor Blackburn curse. We found out the reason. Okay, thank you, Trevor.
But here's the silver lining in that. Any round robin game that goes to overtime, we all know, is only 5 minutes. So at some point, that one's going to end. But the semifinal games and the finals games, those could be longer ones. But with that, let's start breaking down the overtimes in the weekly rundown.
It's time for the E-Crew's Weekly Rundown.
The E-Show Weekly Rundown is brought to you by the Junior Hockey Podcast, your home for junior hockey news, knowledge, and nonsense. Check them out at tjhpodcast.com.
Remember that time we were about to have 2 wildcard games in the EHL, and I asked you guys if either of these games could go to overtime, and Lauren said the Chiefs and 87s, and we all kind of like, I don't know if either one could go, and then they both went to overtime.
Yep.
Like,
I was going to say, the other day,
Mo knows her hockey. Thank you very much.
like
literally the other day, I said that we all looked intelligent because of the overtime game between the Wolves and Rangers and the Chiefs 87s. So I basically was like, oh, you guys are making us look more intelligent than we really are. We've been talking about how deep this league is, all the parity, and then this happens, and then we look like idiots.
Which one do you want to talk about first? Because they were both unreal games.
Yeah, they were.
All right, we'll start with the one that took place.
Our predictions were off. Let's just say that.
Yes, this is true. Let's start with the one that took place first. Anthony.
Yeah, there we go. Chronological.
Fantastic call. I don't know if you had Folk Hero planned, but it worked out perfectly for you.
I did. Since he joined the team, or maybe a little bit afterwards, it had crossed my mind, and then right before the overtime started, I thought, wait, like if he scores again, I can actually use this.
Yeah.
And
you did.
And it was more fitting too, because he had also tied the game too. And he told me after the game, he said it in the post-game interview that was probably the best game he's had in his career. Hopefully he can one-up that in the Frozen Finals. But as great as the call was, like the star of the broadcast is always the game itself and the players, and they put on a show. Like it was the most exciting 87s game I've ever seen, and I've been working with them since the start in 2017. It was just an amazing hockey game.
When you have games like this, you can say it with both of them. The home teams, the higher seeds, the 87s and the Rangers were clearly the favorites, right? And the Chiefs and the Wolves were clearly the underdogs, right?
Yeah.
As the games progress, the pressure has to increase for the favorites the closer the games are.
I wouldn't necessarily call the Wolves underdogs. I would kind of call them a bit of a dark horse because, like,
true,
going into playoffs, I feel like people might have wrote them out a little bit just because, like, the start of the season, they weren't great. But, like, heading into the second half of the season, they took off and were just like, we're just going to show everybody up. And then they went into playoffs and they're like, we're going to beat you. We're going to beat you. We're going to do this. And it's just like they exceeded everybody's expectations. So I wouldn't call them an underdog. I would more call them a dark horse because everyone kind of was like, didn't know how to feel about them. And then they just were like, yeah, well, no, we're going to do this.
Lauren, I fully agree with that point. That's a very good point.
But then take my question and focus on the favorite, because the Rangers and the 87s were still the favorites. With those games being as close as they were, as they progress and they stay close, the pressure has to increase on the favorites bench, correct?
Yeah, without it. The Rangers are the defending. The Rangers are defending champions, guys. Defending champions. They won all last year.
It increased.
New Jersey was there last year too, and the Chiefs and Wolves were not there last year.
Wait, what's up, Lauren?
It increased a lot more for the Rangers because like 5 minutes into the first period, Miller got hurt, so they had to throw Jackson in, and that was clearly not planned. So that puts more pressure on them to figure things out. Because I mean, obviously they know how Jackson plays, so they know they can trust him. But at the same time, they clearly weren't planning on having him in the net, so they like changes the whole thing.
And you could hear a pin drop.
Oh man,
that
right?
happened. That was everyone was just looking around like, did that just? Because he looked like he was going to stay in. And then he looked over at Sean Roach and he was like, nope, I can't put any pressure on my lower body right now. I'm out. He just like pulled himself out. He's like, I can't. That was.
What were you going to say, Anthony?
For the 87s Chiefs game, I don't know if the pressure would have been mounting on the 87s because I think when a team ties a game late to force it into overtime, they've got the momentum on their side.
Yep.
And if they just keep putting pressure in the offensive zone, then I don't know if I'd say that there's a lot of pressure on them. I mean, maybe a little bit where you just want to end the game and get it over with. But I think the feeling, even before they had that final power play, was I think they just had the momentum on their side. It's like, okay, we're back in this game. We've got them on the ropes, and let's finish it.
And the two games were actually a little bit similar. That's why we've kind of talked about them together so far. But shifting back to the Chiefs one, because Lauren had just mentioned Jackson having to come in for Miller, and I want to get to that. But from the beginning, the Chiefs had to play Yost instead of McCallum, who was their guy down the whole stretch. Did it benefit Yost, even though it didn't go well? Did it benefit Yost getting some action in game 3 of that Railers series? Did that benefit him, you think?
Oh, I think it gives him
a
confidence.
little bit, but like
it's the rust off a bit.
A little bit in that sense, but at the same time, like the Railers and the 87s are two totally different teams. So like on the other hand, you could honestly say no, because you're used to seeing the Railers a lot because they're in your division, and I've been touting that matchup all season. It's always a tough matchup between those two teams, but then you put them up against the 87s and it's like it's completely different. Like, not that one team is better than the other necessarily, but like they have two totally different styles of play. So like, yes, it's good that he's not going in completely blind, but at the same time, like he faced a different team that third game, and like, so it's not the same.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Anthony?
Yeah. Also, sorry for interrupting you, Lauren. That's my bad. But yeah, I was just gonna say, at the end of the day, Yost was terrific. He kept the Chiefs in it. The 87s just kind of kept the pressure going, especially when they were down. And actually, shout out to that one save that Yost made. Oh my goodness. Devlin O'Kane had the puck in the blue paint, a 2-foot tap in. Yost was on his side, and he reached out and made a glove save. I told Adam after the game, like, as soon as he made the save, I immediately got flashbacks to Middletown when Thomas Walker robbed Zach Tarantino.
Our boy.
And I thought, and as I'm making the call, I'm thinking in my head, the Chiefs are going to win this game. Like, this is Zach Tarantino getting robbed by Walker all over again. And thank goodness Kyle tied the game, because like I thought it was just going to be a repeat of 2019. I could not believe it.
But that's a testament to the Chiefs too. They
Mhm.
have goalie depth. Yes, they have McCallum, who's been good for them all season, earned himself an All-Star nomination and went there. Like he's been good for them all season. But they have what I think it was the Newington Showcase when it was like right before the Newington Showcase they picked up Yost. So it's like they have goalie depth.
Yeah,
it's
for the Wizards.
McCallum that they're relying on, but it's like they've relied on McCallum enough where it's like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So it's like yes, they'll give him days off, but it's like he's technically their starter, but they have a bunch of goalie depth. So it's like they're not super worried.
Just think about that. That's a storyline we've talked about a lot this year, right? The goalie depth on all these teams. Adam Yost was a wizard at one point.
Yeah, he was.
And obviously, Gover was a good keep. Asenza, a good keep. Alto, a good keep. But I don't want to go down the back door and be like, oh, what if we kept Yost? Could we have won that series? I mean, he helped the Chiefs get there.
You never know.
Just a fun little pot to stir. But
yeah, but Lauren brings up the Newington Showcase where the Chiefs won all 3 games in their home building, right? With 3 different goalies.
Both Chiefs did, not even just the Chiefs.
Oh, Chiefs Premier too. That's right.
Swept the
Yeah,
whole
they
weekend.
swept that entire thing.
So
It's
just funny to look at Yost stats and see 3 goals given up on 8 shots in that Railers game 3, and then 3 goals given up on 42 shots in the wild card game. He was that good, and he gave them a chance to win. And if there's any takeaways from a loss for the Chiefs, it's one, you're right there on the door of the Frozen Finals. And as an 0-2, Adam Yost probably on the way out said to Coach Effernan, I hope that you have me as your starter next year because I think I just earned it in that one game. So
and
that was an audition, right? That was an audition. Whether Coach Heffernan would say it or not, that was absolutely an audition for him. And I'd say he won that audition.
Especially McCallum's off to UMass Dartmouth in the fall, so he's got some big shoes to fill. Plus, like even before they lost McCallum, he kept them in the games. Trevor and I were at game 2, and he like absolutely kept them in that game because the Railers are a tough team. And like literally, at one point we were standing on like the Zamboni and watching McCallum because we're trying to get some good footage and stuff, and he was just absolutely standing on his head. He was blocking everything that came to him. He had this whole long sequence, and we're just like, how did none of that go in? Because he was just getting bombarded with Railers and like just constantly in front of him, and he was just like, nope, I'm keeping all of this out. And it's just like, that's why they won that game. He's a big reason why they win games.
Yeah. Also, a lot of upside for the Chiefs too. That was their best season yet since joining the EHL, right? They picked up 18 wins, another season with at least 15 wins. So I think it's starting to come together for the Chiefs, and they should be a formidable team to watch out for moving forward.
And not just the wins, they got 7 commitments so far too, and more to come. And I mentioned the similarities between the 2 wildcard games. Look no further than Kyle Fulkerson scores 2 goals and Kevin Johnston scores 2 goals.
He was disgusting. Like, my little red all-stars growing up, he was gross in that game. I literally told him that in his interview. I was like, dude, that first goal was disgusting.
Like,
it was.
Let's talk about
we
that
all
first
sat
goal.
there and our jaws were on the floor. And we're like, what?
Quick
just
hands.
Happened? Oh,
doesn't have the quickest of feet, but quick hands.
I try and
like,
give
he's
no
not one
reaction.
of those like motoring wingers. He's not one of those speedy guys, but he has a bigger frame and he's got good quick hands, and that's what he did. He just kind of went. He went. Trying to remember correctly, backhand, forehand. Yeah,
he dragged it. He dragged it through the defenseman's legs or something.
That's what. Yeah.
I try and give no reaction when I'm not calling a game. Even I was like, wow. like
then,
wow. Oh yeah, I was there with a bunch of the guys. At the end. Oh yeah, we were. We knew Jeff was excited, but I was there. Trevor Blackburn, Tyler Rigo, Justin Squateri. We were all sitting there and we were like, what? Like, and Trevor immediately after was like, I really wish I had my camera. And we all started laughing. Like, that would have made for some great content. It's like, it's not Railers, but we're like, oh my God, we also wish he had his camera because that was disgusting.
Anytime you see a move like that and then hear the metal cling, you get the, oh, what a snipe golf. I was like, woo.
It's like what Neil says, the best sound is the puck going off the post, and then you hear the roar of the crowd.
Yes.
Yep.
And then the Rangers respond right away with the weirdest goal. Like, I still don't know how it went in. Like, it was just kind of a shot from the point that went through a sea of bodies and found its way in. And maybe, I've mentioned my first question to Josh Holmstrom before, who's the head coach of the Walpole Express. I'm going to say to him, what happened in between periods 1 and 2 of game 3 of your Wizards series for the Wolves. When did they know that they had something special in Liam Kilgallen to go win 11 games in February, and then to lose game 1 against the Lumberjacks and then be in overtime in game 2. So you're literally one bounce away from your season ending because you're in overtime. And now all of a sudden you're all the way in the Frozen Finals. And the best, I can't call it a stat, the best fact that Andrew Trimble gave me is that of the 6 Frozen Finals teams that advanced, the New England Wolves are the only one that faced 3 programs that were all in the Frozen Finals last year. Lumberjacks, Avalanche, and Rangers.
Yeah, they had probably the hardest path to the Frozen Finals.
They have to be the dark horse that Lauren mentioned.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Everyone's like, oh, this underdog, but like, no, like, because in my eyes, like underdog, I kind of like, in this sense, means that they wouldn't have made it. But like the fact that they just like shot off and were like, yeah, we're not winning these series, but like we're winning enough to get us there and like doing what we need to do when we need to. That's huge.
Like, I got to bring up this too. Right before the Johnston goal, Bobby,
the first one or the second one?
Which one?
The overtime winner.
Yep.
Bobby Bernier. You have a 3-0. You have a 3-0.
Pass the puck.
Where's the pass? Like a 3-0, a terrible change from the Rangers, which they'll admit also because you have the long change in overtime. They had a 3-0 from the blue line. And I don't know if the puck ever got out of the zone after that. I think it stayed in the zone, right?
It stayed in, yeah.
So hang on, was that Johnson on the left side in the 3-0?
Yes.
He was on the opposite side. Good thing he scored before he went to the bench, because if he went back to the bench, not getting the puck at all after that 3-0, he probably would have slammed his stick over the dasher. I mean, I only played as far as high school, but if I were in that situation, I probably would have smashed my stick or yelling at my teammate, like, come on, man, 3-0, you got to make at least one pass.
But Bernier is good. He had 8 goals in the regular season. Johnston was pushing 20. He is your sniper. He is your scorer. He is your Pasternak on that far side. You give him the puck, but
so maybe Bernier will have a post-game press conference and it will be outdated, but I'll bring it up. I will say this though, in watching the videos that have come out of the goal, he is slightly ahead of the 2 other players. So we would have to slow up, and maybe it's awkward when you're at that point, you're the middle guy with the puck and your 2 wings are at the same spot as you. If one of the wings had the puck and he's driving the net, maybe it's more of a play. But man, 3-0 from the blue line, man.
And I was gonna say too, I mean, it's easy for all of us journalists in the stands to say that, as we know, playoffs, overtime, 3-0. It's like a layup in basketball. Your eyes get real big and you're like, oh my God, there's 3 of us in the zone right now. And you can't really, your brain can't slow it down like that until after. But yeah, an interesting decision, but hey, no worries. You got the job done. And I mean, credit to them. Like you said too, Neil, they kept possession deep in the zone after the 3-0. I don't know what we call it, fumble, if you will, or not executed the way they wanted it to. I'm sure Coach Kuhns had a fun time going over the video of that too.
Didn't the puck go to the far wall and the Rangers are going to get it out, but then the Wolves made a great play on the forecheck to force the turnover, and it was almost like another mini odd man rush where it's like a 2-on-1. That time they did get it to Johnson. He just sniped it.
I don't think I've ever seen Andrew Trimble that happy. We realized, I think, like in like the second or third period, he had been sitting behind us, and like when that overtime goal happened, we turned around. He was just like, you couldn't pull that smile off his face. It was the funniest thing to see. He was so excited. He loves that team so much. And he is so proud of them. And it was hilarious.
You have to give credit to Chris Jackson, though, Neil.
Man.
He absolutely battled. And that last goal, he got a piece of it. I mean, a 3-0 for a goalie. He was on the left side, had to move his feet quickly to the right side, got a piece of it, and then it just trickled past him, which is that looked like an overtime goal.
He hadn't played since they
March
played
1st.
Seacoast, right? So
24 days he had off.
To come in 4.5 minutes into a game, like, and you haven't played since then, it's tough. But he gave them a chance, right? He gave them a chance. Absolutely. And 2 just electric wild card games. And of course, we're going to stay EHL and get to the EHLP after, because now I want to talk EHL, the pools that these teams ended up in. You know, as the 2 overtime games are playing out, all I'm thinking to myself is, if the Wolves and the 87s win, they're going to end up in the same pools as the teams that just knocked them out, because 1, 4, and 6 line up and 2, 3, and 5 line up, which means the 87s become the 5. They jump in with the Little Flyers. That's their first game, because the Little Flyers play the Railers first on Wednesday, and then the Wolves jump in with the Avalanche. That's their first game, because the Avalanche play the Express on Wednesday as well. Is it hard for the Little Flyers and Avalanche now to beat those teams, their opponents, 3 times in a row in a matter of 15 so days or so?
Not going to be easy. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Plus, you got to think, like, you got to hope that, like, they don't have the mentality of, oh, we just beat them, so, like, we're going to beat them again. Because, like, clearly they came back. Because, yes, you might have beat them, but they both came back in the wild card round. So it's like they still have a lot of fight left in them. And you can't just be like, oh, yeah, we beat them already, so we'll be fine. Like, you can't go in like that. Otherwise, like, it's going to be a beatdown.
That is a very good point, Lauren. And I think a lot of NHL teams in the past, we've seen that, right? That's the best playoffs there is. Anybody else can argue. The NFL, it's the NHL all day long. You get 16 teams. The series are long. They're grueling. You're going to win 16 games to win the whole entire thing. And we've seen it. There's lower seeds that pick teams off because they go in confident, like the New England Wolves. And these other teams look at them and they go, oh, we beat you during the regular season, la-di-da-di-da. It's a new season. Delete everything that you did during the regular season. And you just, it's going to come down to the team with that kind of mindset of taking it one game at a time, forgetting everything during the regular season. And that's the Wolves. They're going in. I mean, I'm sorry to Trent House that's been chirping us on social media about not picking the Wolves. Credit to them. Good job by you guys. Great job by you. Thank you for making us look like, what we are. This is hockey. This is what you got to love about it. And it makes sense the way this season's gone that a team like the Wolves is going to the Frozen Finals. It does.
I think to answer Neil's question, though, at least for the 87s and Little Flyers, I mentioned it in the broadcast how a 2-game sweep can, looks can be deceiving, where both games were super close. So I think for the Little Flyers, they know what they're going into. They know what they have to do against the 87s. So I think for that one, I think the 87s will have to work a little harder to try to get over that hump that is Philadelphia. I mean, obviously it's a winnable game, but I mean that should just be a really hard fought battle. But I don't think Philadelphia is going to go in lackadaisical knowing that they've already beaten them. Because
especially those are both 1-goal wins.
Those games are dogfights.
Yeah.
Yep.
There were 2 1-goal victories. They weren't, butt kickings like some of the other games we had. But
and to Jeff's point, everything that took place up until this point doesn't matter anymore, right? So
literally, even the playoffs doesn't matter. This is a new playoff within the playoffs.
So forget the 1 through 6 seeds, right? It's really as simple as the Avs are a 1, the Express are 2, and the Wolves are 3 in their pool, and then the other pool, the Little Flyers are 1, the Railers are 2, and the 87s are 3, and you each play 2 games, over the course of Wednesday through Friday. It works out great for the Avs and Little Flyers that they play Wednesday, Thursday. The Railers and Express play Wednesday, Friday. The 87s and the Wolves, because of them being the last teams in, play Thursday, Friday. And then 2 of those 3 move on to the semifinals. So going into this, you have to win at least one of your 2 games.
Well, one thing nobody's mentioned too is, which I'm surprised, I'm curious to see if what the Railers did helps them in any way, because they actually took the time to rent some ice at Schneider and get the boys over there for a practice, kind of get them acclimated to the rink and get them over there and just kind of not let them just sit there and hang out while they're waiting to go to Providence. They literally have been practicing their little butts off. They took the time to go all the way out there and let them check it out, get a feel for the ice and the rink and everything. So we'll see if that benefits them at all, because they were, as far as I know, they're the only team that's done that, which I think was kind of neat that they chose to do that, because some might say, well, they got special treatment. Any team could have done that. If they really wanted to, they could have been like, oh, we'll rent some time to get there early, let them check it out. They decided to take the time to do that. So we'll see if that pays off for them.
The ice is pure there. There is no Zamboni bounce, almost cost the Wolves. I don't even know when it was. One of the overtimes. there was a wraparound pass that kicked into the slot, and
Yep.
Kilgallen made the save. But yeah, to be, I think the word for what Lauren was saying too is to not be starstruck the second they take the ice on Wednesday for the first time, because going through these one at a time, each team, and I know for Anthony's story this week that's going to come out soon, it's not going to be why each team can win. It's going to be how they got there. Well, let's talk about why each team can win or will want to win, because the one seeds the Avs, right? I'm going back to 1 through 6 here. The one seeds the Avs, and they're the one of the 6 that's won before. So
multiple times.
Twice.
Almost got a 3.
Yes, and they've been in the title game 3 times. So I think it's only fitting that they have to be knocked off for a new champion, a new champion to be crowned. But starting with the Avs, where did this switch come from? Because they did not enter the postseason like this.
Still trying to figure that out. I mean, we dissected it a lot on last week's episode that you can catch over at easternhockeyleague.org, episode 114, that is. But we talked about Kyle Dan. Does Kyle Dan's run continue with 6 goals in the first couple of rounds? Or do Hotchkiss, Carlson? I mean, they all poured in a good amount of points too. But do they start taking over and those first lines start dominating? We've talked about Mobley a lot this year, how he's been good, but also not so great at times. Another guy that hit the reset button, come to the Frozen Finals. And I mean, we all know Chris. We all know the Avalanche.
Yep.
They're a very confident team. And I don't know where, to answer your question, Neil, they do this every year. They get to the playoffs and it's literally like lights on or lights off. Oh, lights on now. Here we go. It's go time.
But too, they have a deep veteran core, so it's like you got to think that like most of the team is very hungry to try to win another championship because they have so many guys that are going to be leaving. So they probably they want to leave on a high note. Like they don't want to go there and just be out in the first round and be like, okay, bye. Like they have they've had the most commitments all season. So like you got to think those guys are like, all right, like we want to have something to show for this.
Yeah, top points getters. And like you just said too, Lauren, with the veterans, they all remember what happened in Westchester last year. They don't want that to happen again.
Oh yeah.
They're hungry. They're hungry.
The other thing too, I think we've seen it with the 87s, we've seen it with the Junior Rangers, all the top teams in the standings where they've all had some stretches of adversity. I guess for the Avalanche, just happened to be late in the season.
Mm-hmm.
They finally hit a rough patch, but they bounced back. And the other thing too, I think for them to get over the hump against the Seacoast Spartans, because that was a tough series for them, and being able to avenge that upset last year was huge.
Yep. So now the 2 seed, the Philadelphia Little Flyers, who have no championship. As I mentioned, the Avs are the only one that have won a championship, but the Little Flyers have been here before. They've been to the Frozen Finals before.
And it looked like this the last time they were here.
Well, yeah, and they've also won the regular season championship 4 times. But you could make the case of all the years, they've probably never felt as confident as they do now going into the Frozen Finals. They're the hottest team in the league right now. They're the hottest of the 6, I feel like. Is that not true?
Plus, you got I feel like I've seen it at showcases, and some people might be like, that doesn't make sense. They have their P team going, so they have a whole extra team full of support. They have a built-in support system going there with them. So do the Avs, but some of these teams are very I've seen it at showcases. Some of these EMP teams are very close, and they're at each other's games all the time, anytime they can be, and they have an entire built-in support system going there with them. So you got to think they try to feed off of that as much as they can.
That's a good point, because we've seen that before. Neil at Schneider with the P teams, they're a giant crowd. They know these guys. They all have different chants, nicknames, dances, whatever, if you will. And it really does help. It helps a lot.
Yep. 3 seed. We just talked about them. Use the ice to practice. Nobody's ever done that before.
The Blue Train.
They're in their 3rd year still. I have to almost pinch myself at times. 2 years ago, they won 7 games. Right? Yeah. Last year, I don't remember what the win total was, but they got past the Wizards in their first round matchup, eventually lost to the Rangers on their way to the championship. This Railers team has had to play more games than anybody else in the postseason because both of their series went to 3. Does that help them?
I said they haven't played since the 20th. So by the time they actually get to playing, I know they're going down and practicing, but you can't truly simulate what you do in practice in a game style. So I know you guys always like to joke with me. Rest. Here it comes, Anthony. Ready? Rest versus Russ. Rest versus Russ.
I almost think in that sense, though, when you bring that up, I almost think when you mention that, I think that practicing at Schneider gives them a little leg up. Like when you say it that way, oh, like they haven't played an actual game, but like they haven't played an actual game, but they've been on the ice that they're about to be playing on for the week. So like in that sense, that I think gives them a bit of a leg up, whereas like the rest of these teams are still at home practicing.
Yeah, we'll see.
And we've already used the term or nickname dark horse, right? So maybe we'll call the Wolves dark horse A and the Express dark horse B.
I was gonna say we've gone this long and nobody has mentioned the Express.
Well, they're the 4 seed.
Huge.
They're the 4 seed, and for how long were they the number 1 ranked team in the league? Are we forgetting how good this team can be? Because it's right now, Jack Bosher may be the best player in the postseason so far.
Well, plus, honestly, like with the whole March Madness stuff going on, in my opinion, I would consider the Express the Cinderella team this season.
St. Peter's.
Like, they have just completely, like, when I talk about expectations, they have exceeded all expectations. Jack Bosher is just like, all right, I'm going to turn this on and we're going to go. Like, it's similar to the Wolves too, where it's like people didn't have like the highest expectations for them. Not saying they didn't have any, but like they didn't have the highest expectations for them. But then they were just like, we don't care about that. We're just going to go off anyway, and we're going to go to Providence. And they're like, yep. Jack Bosher's like, I'm going to get you guys there. It's fine. We'll be good.
He's a bad man. He was a hashtag blue boy.
Yes, he was so good at that All-Star game. Oh my God.
Blue boys.
Number 5 seed, New Jersey 87, second straight Frozen Finals appearance. So they're going to be looking for
coming back.
They're going to be looking for some revenge from that first appearance, but also their first ever time in Providence. So that I think makes it a unique trip for them. And what I like about what they're doing, they don't have enough time to come up and practice at Schneider, but they are coming up the night before to just already be here.
Settle in.
How important do you think that will be to be able to wake up Thursday morning, still have a few hours before your game, but already be up here? There's no thought about, I gotta get on the bus and then wake my body back up.
Can we bring back Anthony's term of bus legs?
I was just gonna say, Lauren,
it goes
no
full
spaghetti
circle.
legs, you boys. No spaghetti legs.
Lauren, it goes full circle. I mean, they
So
know.
said that.
Well, no, I mean, because that's the reason why I made that rant, because it's something they always talk about, that they don't want to have to take the bus and immediately play. So, they have the opportunity to go the night before. So hopefully that should level the playing field a bit for them.
You know how there's NFL teams that are proposing new overtime rules right now? The 87s are proposing for a new master scheduler next year, not named Neil Ravin. But they will be up here. Their first game is against the Little Flyers, and that gets us to Dark Horse A, the New England Wolves, right? And here's where, Jeff, you wanted to call this episode overtimes, right? Plural. How about deja vu? Because for me, for the Wolves, it was at the EHLP level last, but the last Wolves Frozen Finals appearance came in the EHLP, came in 2018-19, came in Providence, came by their team going through the Rangers in Tewksbury to get there. Their EHL team just did that.
That's so weird.
Maybe that's why Andrew Trimble was so excited at the end of that game, right? Because
he's feeling that same mojo.
It's the same juju, right? And this is where I'm going to go back to the favorites thing, right? I guess you have to list the Avs as the favorite because of the number 1 seed, but you could make a case for all 6 of these teams, including the team that is the 6th seed. We could see any one of these 6 teams win the whole thing.
Yeah.
I feel that
wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, no, it's absolutely. I agree.
So obviously the biggest key for all these teams is you got to win at least one of your 2 round robin games. It'll be crazy to watch and see how they manage their goaltenders, right?
Yeah.
I think
try not to lose the first game, but then we saw last year the Rangers threw that right out. Hashtag Whistlegate. Remember that?
Oh my God. But here's what's interesting, right? The Avs, like, these are easy predictions. Avs starting goalie, Mobley. Little Fire starting goalie, Henson. When you get down the road here, like
Walpole Boschert, Wolves
80
Kilgallen.
Yeah, 87s. Connor,
Whoa.
Haynes, depends on what happens in game one. I know we saw Kulhonic the entire time for the Railers, but they also have Cam Carroll LaPierre. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch. I remember last year, one of the biggest tweets in terms of eyeballs and views was Kyle's tweet when he announced that Jeremy Connor was starting, and I think it was the third game, right? And that was like that was a moment, right? So we'll see if we have a similar moment like that. But that's the EHL stage, right? EHLP, totally different format, but crazy second round because we got to start up north where the Avs were trying to win that series because the Lumberjacks have owned them lately, and for the Lumberjacks, this may be the scariest team of all because they just can't stop scoring in the EHLP.
Trent King, man.
I mean, I'm not looking at the numbers right now, and I should be. I think they have 26 goals in 4 postseason games or something like that.
King and Hamlin lead the entire EHLP 10 points apiece. They have 3 and 7, symmetrical, Neil. 3 goals, 7 assists for each of them.
But we're starting to get into the points where we may see some players in Providence set records for postseason points, right? You got to back to the EHL for a second. You have guys like Drew Oliveri, who's approaching the top 10 for the best postseasons in league history, and he's doing it. He's doing it in fewer games than he used to have.
I love that you mentioned Dulac. Trevor told me about that. He was like, "This kid is gross in the offseason or the postseason." He was like, "I don't know why you guys haven't picked him more for fantasy." He's just apparently he's just a big postseason guy.
But back to the Lumberjacks and Avalanche, it is 26 goals. The Lumberjacks look as lethal as any team of these 4. They're both going because the Avs won the regular season championship. But you have to think that between those 2 teams, Avs and Lumberjacks, the Lumberjacks have to feel so much better about entering the Frozen Finals being a perfect 4-0 versus the Avalanche, who are now maybe questioning themselves a little bit at 2-2. And you win the series, you go in as the 1 seed, you'll lose the series, you're the 4 seed. And where that becomes very important is one of the 4 EHLP teams has to play at 8:00 on Friday night and then at 9:30 a.m. on Saturday morning. And that's the 4 seed.
Quick turnaround. So they look up top to the scheduler and say, "Thank you, Neil."
It's not my fault. That's the system that we have.
I'm kidding.
I mean, a great series. You really look at it, and there were 2 phenomenal games between those 2 teams. So maybe it's that same thing we talked about with the Little Flyers and 87s and the Wolves and Avalanche in the EHL. Can the Lumberjacks beat the Avalanche 3 straight times? And the 3rd time being the one that matters most.
And it's a good thing that they came in at 4-0 too, though. That's another thing. They haven't lost in a while. Sometimes you want to get a loss out of the way.
For sure. But speaking of 4-0, we talked a lot about revenge and teams seeking revenge last week. The Rangers got that in their series with the Railers. The Railers beat them in that same series of the year before. The Rangers returned the favor in this one. And again, we go back to this concept of sweeps. And the Rangers beating the Railers by definition is the sweep, I guess. But it really isn't. It was 2-1 in double overtime and 3-1 with an empty netter. That was a phenomenal series when we look back on it.
Yep.
So for the Rangers, though, do they have the extra motivation to do this for their EHL team that got knocked out?
I'd say so. I mean, I'll be interested to see too if all the EHL guys come down and support the premier team. Did hear Coach DiCaprio, even though he wasn't very happy the other day, was saying, "Hey, we still got our P boys in it." That was before that game too. So we'll see if, like we were talking about before, with the support of your premier team helping your EHL team, or vice versa, if that ends up coming to fruition or not. But I mean, the Rangers premiers, we've called a lot of those games in the past, Neil. They've been a wagon of a team for a long time. They've arguably been the best premier organization we've had, right, in the EHL's history. And we mentioned to get back.
We mentioned with the Little Fly or the Avalanche in the EHL, they're the only one of the 6 that's won a championship. These trophies right behind me, right? For the
Yeah.
Rangers, they're the only one of the 4 that has their name on the second one there. They're the only one of those 4 EHLP teams that has won it. I know it's different teams, right? Because there definitely is more turnover at the EHLP level than there is at the EHL. You get some more guys that return EHL, but that they
were the last time we were in Providence.
Yeah, and that's kind of this deja vu thing, because now we get to the Little Flyers, and Mark Catron texted me the second after that series ended with the 87s and said, "What did I do to myself?" and because he's got both teams going now, and obviously he coaches both teams, and he's going to probably be after us, humbly, the most exhausted of anybody else after the Frozen Finals ends, right? And I said to him on it, my response back to Mark when he said, "What did I do to myself?" As I said, honestly, Mark, you're giving yourself your best chance at revenge, because the last time the Little Flyers were there, it was a little bit of a Black Sunday for them, where they lost the EHLP championship game, then the EHL championship game. Can the Little Flyers EHLP, I'm going back to underdog, and I know we don't like that term, but the EHLP Little Flyers, you would have to say, are probably the underdog of the 4 teams that are going. Can they pull it off?
Even though they have Mr. Dangerously
and Nick McKay, they have 2 top kids from the PL season. I'm not too worried about them.
Hang on, and don't sleep on Logan Downs.
I
mean,
just
because the third one wasn't on video doesn't mean it didn't happen. And there were a lot of people at Jersey Shore Arena who saw that. Arena was packed for Game 2. My goodness. Shout out to both fan bases for the 87s and Little Flyers. And I pointed out on the broadcast, it's ironic because the EHLP usually has the higher turnouts, but that's because the EHL team, like for the 87s especially, have those Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday afternoon games at 12:30, whereas the P team, they get those Saturday night games. So it was a packed house at Jersey Shore Arena, and when Michael Body scored the goal to make it 5-3, I was thinking, okay, now the 87s have a shot, but then Logan Downs comes in, brings it to within 1. Colin Berry was the one who tied it, and then Downs completes the hat trick just 21 seconds in overtime. Like, that game was bananas, probably more so than the game against the Chiefs at the EHL level.
The other thing with the regards to fans and parents being there, of course, more EHLP players are from local, so the parents are here to check them out. That's what makes this upcoming week that much more fun for the EHL, is that with 6 teams going, and with players that are from all across the country and across the world, we're going to see a lot of EHL parents be flying in to see their kids play this week. That's what makes it fun, to actually meet some people that you haven't met all year long, but have listened to this podcast all year long. But in terms of the EHLP, I think going off of the seeds again, just like how the Avalanche are the one and are the quote unquote favorite and the only one that has won it in the past, you could say the same thing applies to the Rangers, who are the quote unquote favorite, and they have won it in the past in the EHLP. But you can make the case, just like you can for all 6 teams in the EHL, you can make the case for all 4 teams in the EHLP, that everybody has a chance to win it all on Sunday. And in terms of the whole event as a whole, I've never felt like it was this up in the air going into the Frozen Finals. It's never felt like this before. In the past years,
that 1 or 2 teams were like, nah, they're probably going to win it.
Last year was the Rangers. Last year's Rangers EHL team, they were the top team. The last time we had the finals before that, the Avalanche in Providence, the 18-19 team, like, they were a wagon. We were like, that is probably the team that it's going to be. But this year, both divisions, it feels like we could see anything, right? They talk about those video game simulations, right? If it played out for us, I bet you would get a different scenario every time out of a million, right? So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But that takes us to the eCrew Fantasy Challenge next.
It's time for the eCrew Fantasy Challenge.
And the eCrew Fantasy Challenge is presented by BioSteel, the sports drink of the EHL. Use the promo code ESHOW, that's ESHOW, for 25% off when you check out at biosteel.com.
We do know the champion here, and there's no debating that.
Her name is Lauren.
and where I have to go back to the drawing board this offseason. It starts with the All-Star Classic. It starts with the EHLP All-Star Game, and it finishes with my bracket because I lost a lot of points there.
So basically, you're going to find ways to change the point system to benefit yourself.
Whatever it takes.
That's literally what that says.
Whatever it takes. I mean, at one point this year, I was in first place. I'm just saying.
You were. And Lauren dominated the All-Star events, and that gave us a nice boost. And then Colin Bella said, "Hey, I'm just going to score 1 million freaking points at the end of the year."
Yeah, we dominated the All-Star Classic, and then we get to the P All-Stars, and Neil was like, "Let's put the 2 top All-Star Classic people on the same team and see what happens."
You know what? Anthony and I were hitting the panic button for the first 2 periods of the EHLP All-Star Game. And then we gave you guys the panic button because things started to turn there for a second. Like
schmanic.
I will say I was not too worried about you two, like, because it was honestly from what I remember seeing, it was Jeff on my tails a lot. Jeff, like, towards the end was stressing me out a little bit. I remember the one week too I forget who it was, but it was one of the weeks I had Colin Bella, and I was like congratulating him on getting his points record and all that stuff, and he was like, "Oh, hopefully fantasy's going well." And I was like, "Jeff's on my tail." Like, I'm getting a little nervous, but I was like, it's going. And he goes, "Oh, I got you." And he goes out and scores like a hat trick the next day. And I was like, he wasn't kidding.
So in his head, he's like going down the wing. He's like, "Oh man, Lauren needs an extra couple points. I guess I'll snipe, wrist her, slap her, short-handed point, power play point."
We haven't ever done this before, but obviously he was the MVP of the league and he was the MVP of fantasy too. Like,
we should start doing that.
Honestly, if we would have, we still miss him. Loved having him around. Egan Schmidt, if he was here all season 2, it'd probably be a tight race between him and Bella because he was gross when we had him at the beginning of the season.
He's been killing it with the NA too. So good for Egan.
To recap the wild card points, we didn't really do that well with the wild card guys. I don't think we really had Kevin Johnston or Fulkerson. So, but Lauren got 7.8 total points from Adam Yost, and then 2 additional, which gave her the bracket because of the 87's victory. Jeff got a pair of assists from Matt Zdanowicz. Owen Haynes only had to make 12 saves, so you didn't get too many points there, Jeff. And then for myself, I had Liam Kilgallen with the win and 47 saves.
47 saves, though.
So technically, I had the best wild card at 9.4.
Wow.
Anthony, I think you probably had the hardest wild card with your starting goaltender leaving because of injury after 3 saves, one of your forwards getting kicked out and getting suspended. So we didn't do well with the wild card, right? We had a 2-game shot. We really didn't. None of us had Fulkerson. None of us had Johnston. I guess in a way I had Kilgallen, so that was probably the best one of the 4. And then Lauren had Yost. But the overall points to wrap up fantasy, because we are not going to have fantasy at the finals. Lauren had 870.6. Jeff had 827.4. I had 808.4. And Anthony had 803.2. Anthony, if you'd like, I can subtract 5 points for myself, 5.2 points, and we could share the bottom together. Because truthfully, I feel like we're there together, and then Jeff and Lauren are another tier above us with the way that they
hashtag Team Tank.
Yes, Team Tank.
Yeah, so you guys get the first pick next year? What is this?
We get Connor McDavid next season.
I mean, Bob's go get your first and second round picks next year.
To our credit, though,
we'll still beat you.
All 4 of us at one point this year were in first place. For Anthony and
so we all did well.
It just happened to be a long time ago. That's all. So,
and it hasn't worked out like that in the years past. We've always had like a 1-2 race. Like last year was you and Brittany. And then the first year, I think me, you, and Brittany were all like.
Yeah, I think it ended up being like me and you down the stretch that year.
So me, you, and Lauren all have a ship.
Now we can finally admit that my quote unquote wild picks paid off. The amount of times you're like, who are these kids? Why are you like, this doesn't make sense. They made sense because they got me the wins.
Yeah, they did. Well done, rookie.
By a solid 40 plus points. So
do I need to try to get a picture of Jordan Camillo, the 2 rookies of the year?
Oh, there we go.
It's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea.
Good. I like that.
But with that, let's get to what to watch for. And you guys know what time it is. It's bold prediction time.
Homework time.
Before we wrap things up, here's what to watch for this week in the E-Show.
What to watch for is presented by Hockey TV, the official streaming platform for your EHL and EHLP action through the 2021-2022 season.
When the Little Flyers EHLP knocked off the defending champion 87s, for a moment, I said I'm going to update my bold prediction. For a moment.
Did you? Did we miss this?
No, this is me. This is me thinking at home. For a moment, I was like, well, my bold prediction is that we'll end the Frozen Finals with the same matchup that we had last time we ended, which was Little Flyers Avalanche EHL. For a moment, I said Little Flyers are going to make it at both levels to the championship game. And I was like, do I actually think that? I don't really know right now. I'm going to stick with what I went with last week. The EHL championship game will be Little Flyers and Avalanche. That is my bold prediction for this upcoming week in Providence. Whoever wants to go next.
I'm going to go because I'm scared. I was toggling back and forth.
Do you need to say sorry first? Yeah,
I guess so. Oh, damn it, Neil. I think I have a couple of. So one of the ones I was thinking, I guess I'm just going to give like a couple. Because,
okay, he's got two.
That's what I do. I was thinking about that same thing about both Little Flyers organizations getting to Championship Sunday. But after the other day, I think my bold prediction is the Wolves are getting to Championship Sunday.
Oh, dark horse A.
They're getting to Championship Sunday.
Okay.
We can't do predictions, but I'm going to say the Wolves get to Championship Sunday.
Okay.
How's that?
Wow. I mean,
bam.
We've put a bar up there for Lauren and Anthony now.
There you go.
Well, I mean, mine is I guess a little bit in line with Jeff. I would like to see, like, obviously I'm a blue train, but I would like to see one of the two trains in the championship. I think it'd be fun, especially because the Railers are such a young team and they've only got better as they've gone along. And this is the Express's first time here. So I think it'd be fun to see either of the two of them there.
And since I love the red train so much, I was like, I'm staying away from any predictions. Don't want to curse you guys. So,
all right. So we have Little Flyers Avalanche EHL championship game. We have Wolves in the EHL championship game. And we have a train on EHL
train
in the EHL championship game. Anthony, yes. I mean, wrap this up for us.
Oh no,
he's putting on his thinking cap. I think
you can't see his face.
I just stole one of his.
I guess I have a small prediction or a somewhat bold prediction and a slightly bolder prediction.
Oh,
I think that.
I think the first one is I'm going to set the over/under for shorthanded goals over 5.
Wow.
There are a lot of teams who have been really good shorthanded, especially the Philadelphia Little Flyers. I think we're going to see a lot of offense shorthanded in this Frozen Finals. The other one, I think the championship game is going to be one up from last year. I think we're going to see a double overtime game.
Oh my God!
The championship game.
All right,
dude. I'm still having chest pains from last year's overtime game. Me and Neil just looking at each other.
Anthony's been talking to Trevor too much. He just.
Oh man! Well,
double overtime.
Whoa. All right, so I need a second to decompress from all of our predictions here. So let's start with Anthony's shorthanded comment. I need to find a soundtrack that has a ding noise in it. So every time there's a shorthanded goal, they have the scorekeeper just do ding, and then if we get to 5. We'll have some sort of huge applause because Anthony will be right?
Or maybe I'll set the over under to 4.5. So if they get to 5, then
perfect. Okay, the over under is 4.5. We do not have any sports betting in the EHL. But for those who want to take that on the side with their local bookkeeper, Anthony has set the over under at 4.5 for the entire Frozen Finals. Oh man,
goopy question for you: are we firing up the train horn there this year? I've been asking. We got to use the goal horn there. They have an awesome goal horn. Can we use it?
But they have, because they also have the red lights that go on the stanchions behind. So
honestly, it would be excessive, but I almost wish we could get the goal songs for every team in there. So every time the team scores, their goal song plays.
I'd like that.
The tough task for the scorekeeper, but it's not a bad idea.
It's 6 teams.
I'd have to make sure that the buttons were very easily laid out.
Technically, it's only 10 teams, 6 East,
6 and 4.
Yeah.
That's bad.
I think we should throw that wrinkle in.
This whole, you know,
just adds the environment.
This whole
Plus,
episode,
like the Little Flyers song alone is just like it's great.
You know, we have the Frozen Finals coming up, guys, and Nash is like not into this episode.
Yeah, he's been bored. He's been sleeping the whole time. Sorry, Nash.
Like this is a very exciting time. But to Anthony's second bolder prediction, I did the quick count. 9 games so far in the combined between the EHL and EHLP have gone to overtime. In the history of the Frozen Finals, this is the 4th year that we've had the event. Should be the 5th. Damn you, COVID. But
thanks, Uncle.
The 4th year that we've had the event, the 3rd time in Providence. Of course, last year was in Westchester. But in the history of the event, only 2 games ever have gone to overtime.
Last year's championship game.
The very first year was a round-robin game between the Little Flyers and the Rangers. And last year's championship game, which I should probably go find the timestamp on when that goal was scored. It wasn't early.
13 minutes in.
Yeah, it was. I want to say it was just past the halfway point of the first overtime. So
I think it was about 7 minutes left.
You know, that means Anthony's looking at about EHL championship game starts at 3:00. We're talking 7:30 p.m. on Sunday night. We're gonna end things. So, well, maybe there's an over under on when we hand off the trophy on Sunday night that we could figure off. And obviously the season ends when you hand that trophy off. So maybe we'll have to come up with that. But I really do like all of our bold predictions and bolder predictions. I think there's going to be plenty of people that have plenty to say about those on Twitter at Trent House. When you said Wolves on Championship Sunday, Jeff, you just earned some brownie points.
Andrew Trimble might give me a little wink gift.
But like I said on a few occasions so far, the Frozen Finals have never felt this up for grabs. So we're
alive, people. We're alive.
We have 2 awesome crews set up for the broadcast. You guys are kind of rotate around with Tyler, with Chris. We got Trevor coming down. We got post-game press conferences, which of course pre-game shows as well. I got Sean Roach, who's the you can call him the legendary trainer in the EHL. Bob D'Alessio, his first chance to be at the Frozen Finals is coming as our equipment guy. And of course, all the teams, I've never felt more excited for a Frozen Finals than this year. And it's really the culmination of 7 months of work that comes down to this. And to be able to hand off these 2 trophies behind us on Sunday is going to feel pretty special. So we hope that you can join us in Providence this week. If you can't, we'll have tons of coverage on our social channels, Hockey TV and YouTube Live. And just follow along because it's going to be awesome. We'll see you guys in Providence.
See you guys there.
Thanks for listening to The E-Show. Learn more at easternhockeyleague.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, be sure to subscribe and get notified when next week's podcast is released. Welcome to The E-Show with Neil Ravin. Founded in 2013, the EHL has become the college placement leader on the East Coast. Sit back and learn more about the next step in your junior hockey career.
Welcome to the E-Show, presented by the Penalty Box Foundation. The Foundation's mission centers around their daily motto, "We take care of our own," as they help out all of those within the hockey community who've experienced a catastrophic event. Learn more at penaltyboxfoundation.org. What's up? My name is Neil Ravin, and this is episode number 116 of the E-Show. On this week's episode, we break down an epic week at the 2022 EHL Frozen Finals in Providence, Rhode Island. Ultimately, it was the New Jersey 87s winning it all in the EHL, and the Boston Junior Rangers following suit in the EHLP. But it wasn't easy by any stretch for either franchise. The E-Crew recaps the week that was at Schneider Arena on the campus of Providence College. What's up, guys? How are we feeling?
Long time no see.
I think we've seen enough of each other for a while.
Oh,
It's a good point, Lauren. As much as we love each other, that was a lot of time spent.
We record this on Zoom. I'm sure there's a thought process for all of us to all turn our video off right now, so we just see each other's names instead. But man, what a week in Providence! Like, where do we even begin?
I don't know.
Let's go, Abs.
Oh my goodness.
Let's go, Abs.
We never
shout out to
identified.
Owen Johnson. Wasn't he the one keeping count of all that?
Well, Tyler did one day, Owen did one day, and Haley did one day. So we rotated. She got stronger as the week went on. We never identified that mother, but if she's listening to this and wants to identify herself, I still actually have one all tournament team plaque behind me. It's supposed to go to Matt Pimentel, but he would, I'm sure, give it up to her.
Yeah, and I'm sure we can make a new. I think we have to create a new award for next year's award show commission. Do Fan of the Year, and she takes it.
I think
all votes are in. She takes it.
I think part of the issue for us is we were a little bit overtired by the time that began. It made it just that much funnier.
Yeah.
So, oh man, well, let's start on Wednesday, because I will go out and just start by saying that the bold prediction that I have could not have been any more wrong. Like, it was like there's being right and there's being like totally wrong, and I was like past totally wrong. I had predicted
everyone at home what that bold prediction was.
I had predicted that we would end the finals the same way we did in 2019 with Little Flyers versus Avalanche in the EHL championship game, and we weren't even close. Like, we weren't even close. They didn't score a goal the first day.
And to quote Anthony LaRusso, Jeff, I hate this place. I hate this arena. I'm calling the wrecking crew and I'm knocking this place down. I'm sorry, Nate Lehman, but I don't like this place. That is Anthony LaRusso, your team president of the Philadelphia Little Flyers.
Yeah, the funniest thing is everybody else loves the place. But like, I mean, to enter for the first day, and it was Walpole versus the Avs, and then the Railers versus the Little Flyers. If you had told us that there would be 2 shutouts in the first day, we would have never thought it would have been Walpole and the Railers, right?
It was a good day to be a train that day.
And we have to go back in the record books, Neil. Me and Tyler talked about that a lot in our broadcast. I think Anthony and Chris mentioned it a good amount too, that I don't think we've had that many. So we had a good amount of games that finished with shutouts, but also just periods. We had so many first periods that were just nothing after 20 minutes. And something I want to look back in the record books, because it just shows you, again, the parity in the league, the goaltending, how that was just the story of the week, the story of the champion. And yeah, just one for the ages. What a year, what a week it was. And felt like it was a year.
Yeah, I have 5 months to go through period by period of the Frozen Finals history. I'll let you know how many scoreless periods we've had in the history.
Right.
But
we'll talk about it in the off-season podcast.
Like, it was just, I would have thought one of the top seeds would have won that day. But to see both of them lose and get shut out, going to bed that night, if you're a Little Flyer or you're an Av, like, you went to bed like freaking out, because
especially
you're already
for Philadelphia too.
You're already behind the 8 ball with a loss, and then for Philly, as you just started to say, Jeff, and you're -4. Like, quickly, it's like when a team claims like the home field or home court advantage by winning the first game on the road. It felt like their backs were immediately against the wall.
Right. It was a scoreless first 10 minutes. Then you got Jonathan Heiss. Welcome to the E show, bud. Had 2 goals there in the regular season. The Montreal native gets the first one. Then Colin Rowe, 15-minute mark. Then it was a scoreless second period. But yeah, I mean, going into the third, you're down 2-0, and someone named Jonathan Heiss scored. And I'm sure Coach Catron was looking and saying, who? I was expecting, Pimentel, McGlashing. Pimentel had an assist on that high school, but you're expecting one of the bigger names, Jack Lee, someone like that, to score one of those first period goals. But that was another common theme that we'll talk about today, right? A lot of these guys that didn't do a whole lot in the regular season, and then bright lights came on, and they were like, "Here we go, let's perform." And they did.
It's something you see all the time, Jeff, though, at any level in the postseason, where I think a big part of it is because usually the top scorers are in the opposing coach's game plans.
Correct.
Like, hey, Matt Pimentel, go cover him. Tyler Anastasi, go cover him. And then usually it's the bottom 6 guys who end up scoring the goals. It's almost like clockwork at this point.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point, Anthony. You're right.
So those two teams, the Avs and the Little Flyers, go to bed on Wednesday night panicking. The Express and the Railers go to bed thinking we're in great shape. We don't play tomorrow. We play Friday. So they have a day off. They feel great about themselves. And then the Wolves and 87s, who are on their way there for Thursday, probably feel even more confident knowing now all they had to do was do the same thing that their counterparts did, I guess, the day before and win. And they're in the semifinals. And that's exactly what they did on Thursday. Is it a matter of winning 3 games in a row against a team this late in the year? Because that's what the Little Flyers and Avs had to try and do. The Avs had swept the Wolves. The Little Flyers had swept the 87s. But then the Wolves and 87s got revenge in the matchups that meant the most in Providence.
Yeah, I think so. I think that hockey is that one sport that you can only win against an opponent so many times before it gives water and the other team decides to pick out your weaknesses and do what they did not do as well in those previous matchups and fix them. And for New England, what a story they were, huh? My bold prediction of them getting the championship Sunday, I was just
you were close, man.
I was real close. We'll get through all of ours. I remember Anthony's was the shorting of goals, and then Lauren's. What was yours again, Lou?
Mine came true, actually. So I think I was probably one of the only ones that was correct because I said, I never specified which one. I said there would be at least one train on Championship Sunday, and I was correct.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Fantasy, all-star bracket, bold prediction.
Liam Kelly.
Rookie of the year.
A pretty good year. But on that Thursday, of course, the Wolves beat the Avs in overtime first. That may have been, if you had to rank all the games, that may have been one of the best games of the week.
Yeah, it was very good.
And then the 87s get their revenge against the Little Flyers. We flip things over to the EHLP. And another great game was that Avalanche versus Rangers game because the Rangers came out almost like gangbusters in that first period, and the Avs wouldn't go away. And the Avs made it close and ended up being that was what the EHLP championship game was later on in the week, and we'll get to that. But and then
the symmetry, Neil. First EHLP game, Rangers Avs. Last EHLP game, Rangers Avs.
Yes,
Neil's smiling.
Well, but you didn't think that
symmetry.
You didn't think that though, because the nightcap on Thursday, the Lumberjacks looked like the best team of all 10 teams combined, EHL and EHLP. They were unreal in that game.
They were flying. 6 goals.
Yeah, the Lumberjacks were just buzzing offensively. They because that first game was against the Little Flyers, and they just never took their foot off the pedal. There were 2 hat tricks in that first day for the EHLP. Bobby Voss got the hat trick for the Lumberjacks, and for the Junior Rangers, it was Max Morris.
Yep.
And we found a new guy on the Lumberjacks that we all love and are probably going to see in the EHL next year. Our hip Sidarovich.
That literally, he's one of those people that I like to say, don't leave them alone with the puck because it's probably going to end up in the net somehow, whether it be from them or assisted to somebody else. They just when the puck's on their stick, good things happen.
Great player.
Our hip Sidarovich is what the players like to call freaking gross.
Yeah. Good stinky.
Jeff, I also like how your voice is still in PA mode.
Right? You like that? Sidarovich!
I've never done PA, but is it a matter of finding the syllables? Is that what you have to do?
Yeah, I don't know, dude. It's weird. I've been doing it for so long now. It's I don't even know. It's kind of like my brain and my voice, just we read a name, and some days we read it like this, some days we read it like that, and I don't know. It's weird. It just kind of does itself at this point.
There's definitely a tempo and a cadence that you have to go by. I mean, having done public address myself as well. I mean, and Jeff, listening to you doing public address for the first time in person, it was like a religious experience.
Oh yeah, everybody on the benches was enjoying it. We're it's the voice of the hockey club, Jeff Mills.
I thank you all. I appreciate it. I really do.
Well, we're gonna get to the off-season stuff that we're gonna do, which starting in a few weeks, we'll start breaking down the top 10 players for each team, do team by team. Jeff, what you need to do in the offseason is figure out your favorite 10 names that you've called in the history of the EHL. David Raduzzi used to like really boom out of your voice when he was with Vermont down in Westchester, but we'll have to do a list of those as well because there have been some good ones.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm definitely down for that. That's a fun one.
Then we turned over to Friday. The Avs EHL, the Little Flyers EHL, they've gone home. We know the 4 teams that are going to be in the semifinals the next day, but you still have to play the games because you don't know who's going to face who. And the 2 EHL games were really interesting on Friday because all 4 teams played. I'm going to say they're backup goalies, but they're really not like backups. Like
right.
Trevor Jewell got a shutout.
Sure
he played damn well. Scott Bird had a good season. Jeremy Connor had a great junior hockey career. He goes in the books as the all-time leader in EHLP victories for a goaltender, right?
Cam Carroll.
And Cam Carroll played well in that, and he can come back. Those 2 games, though, and this is no shot at the first game versus the second game. The first game felt like it had a little bit less tempo, and the second game was was just higher or faster. Did you feel the same way?
Yeah, the first game was a lot of like dump and chase. I think just kind of staying to the systems and just getting ready for the semifinal. Yep. The 87's Railers game felt like a semifinal. There were scrums, there were jabs and punches being thrown where players are just short of dropping the gloves. Like you could tell it was like a playoff-like atmosphere in that second game. Again, no offense to the Express of the Wolves. And I guess you could say it was a little beneficial that they, kind of played that more relaxed kind of game. But yeah, there were 2 like opposite feeling games.
Yes.
And I think that's expected too, Neil, like you just said about the slower pace. That's the way New England and Walpole frustrated teams all season long, right? You got 2 very good players in their day, and Tim Kuhns and Josh Holmstrom. They play very structured systems, and that was their goal all year, and it got them as far as they did. Got Walpole all the way to Championship Sunday, got New England right outside Championship Sunday. So I think that was kind of expected too, that 2-0 kind of slog, if you will. But still a great game nonetheless.
I think it's good though too that like some of these teams you'll see like will ride a certain goalie as far as they can during playoffs and finals, but then when you can throw in a different goalie that hasn't seen playoff time and just go off in front of them and have them have a good game and win you a game is huge because it's good to if it ain't broke, don't fix it, ride one goalie the whole way. But if you decide to change it up at any point or you feel the need to, and the fact that you can still hold down a win with that's important.
My favorite post-game press conference answer of the week came from that day after the Wolves, beat Walpole, shut them out. I asked Tim Kuhns about his thoughts towards Trevor Jewell, and he goes through his whole answer. And then I literally said, "So we're gonna see Liam tomorrow," and he just looks back at me and goes, "Oh, we're gonna meet and talk as a coaching staff and figure out the best goalie to go with in tomorrow's semifinal game." Like, would not give me anything. It was the perfect kind of like, I'm not going to take the bait on this one. Here's my answer for you. But those
Jack
were
Washart April Fools to me too.
Yeah, right. That was April Fool's Day.
Right, he's April Fools to me. I was like, Jack, you're still in the street clothes. 58 minutes till puck drop. He's like, Jeff, you didn't hear him not playing today, bud. And I was like, what do you mean you're not playing? I was like, as good as Bird is, it's your net, man. He was like, no, I'm not playing. And then I noticed, and I'm like, I was like, you April Fool's man? And he was like, nope, I'm really not playing. I'm like, hey, there's Bird. All right, he's not playing.
Oh man, it was and Friday. Sorry,
speaking of the Bosharts, we need to say a thank you for those lovely cookies. Those were very
Melissa,
nice from the Boshart Billet family. That was so good.
Yes.
Thank you, Melissa. She's awesome.
They were delicious.
She's a great billet mom.
Nice little midday pick me up we all needed.
And then it's her son Alex that's on the bench too, the Walpole equipment manager. So that family,
such a good kid.
Yeah, that family loves the red train.
You move along to the 2 night games on Friday, and it was kind of we were in a different spot than we were at with the EHL. Dude, I mean, I'm even blanking who played first. The Avs and the Little Flyers played second. That's right.
Saturday?
Because the Lumberjacks.
Friday? Saturday? What day?
Friday. The Lumberjacks and Rangers played first at that time, what we thought was the EHLP championship game preview, right? Because those were the two teams that were 1-0 from the first day. And I think that when it comes to the Rangers in this EHLP run, I think that Mitchell Taylor, what he did in the postseason, like, I totally forgot the fact that he didn't get an all EHLP selection and all East Division selection. He didn't get anything. I think he entered the postseason with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and even he'll admit that he has kind of an unorthodox goaltending style, but he makes the saves. As Michael Grace says, as long as you make the saves, I'm happy. And he makes the saves.
Doesn't matter how you do it. Tim Thomas did that for years in Boston. We all love Tim Thomas. I love that guy to this day. And I think he was, best word to describe him was unorthodox, strange. So, I mean, it happens, right? Not all goalies like to do all the different Tyler Rago type goaltending moves, and 10 bell saves and pad stacks and RVHs. And I love listening to Tyler do goalie talk, all the terms that he brings out. And Joe Bertagna too, with the got myself a nice goaltending book over the week from Joe. He's got a couple of books out there. Make sure you go check those out.
Yes. And then you get to the night game. Rangers obviously beat the Lumberjacks and mathematically solidified their spot, if you will, in the championship. There was a small chance that they wouldn't at that point, being 2-0, but a lot of dominoes would have had to go a certain way. But by the time that night was over, they were in, because the Avs knock off the Little Flyers. That's to backtrack. That is when Let's Go Avs started. But also getting the start in that game was Jared Pac-Man. And in the third period of that game, I don't think there was ever a sequence where a goalie was peppered more than the third period Little Flyers at Pac-Man, including late, because there was a couple power plays, maybe one power play late, where they threw everything at him, and he just anchored that team to that victory.
I was going to be very upset if we didn't bring him up. He needs some major stick taps from this week. He was so good in that net. He absolutely kept his team in it, and it was fun getting to interview him and one of his teammates after that game, because they brought the I believe it was that game they brought out.
Was it after the Lumberjacks game?
I don't know. That giant Pac-Man.
I think it was Saturday when they did that.
That giant Pac-Man cutout was pretty special.
It was amazing. Cool. He said his mom brought it, and I had a couple players in mind for that interview, and one of his teammates came over and they're like, "Are you interviewing Packy?" And I was like, "Do you want me to?" And he goes, "Yeah, I want to bring out the Pac-Man." So I was like, "All right, send him over with this guy." And they were just all so excited to have him. They were all in the background cheering, to the point that head coach Vinny Calgieri had to tell him, all right, quiet down a little bit. We got to actually get the interview done. They were all just so excited for him. And it's one of those times where they all bought into him, because obviously they've been playing their goal for a while, but switch things up, throwing Pac-Man in there, and they all completely bought in. And he was just putting on an absolute show for everybody in the P, and he just made those games so much more exciting. And his helmet is so cool, gotta say.
It's a shout out to Dave Thuralt and the rest of the awesome DET Sports Productions crew, because at first we weren't sure if that was like a Dave graphic or if that was actually real. That's how cool that Pac-Man sign was. We're all like, "Wait, Dave, did you put that in?" And then I'm like, then we're all looking down and we're like, "Oh no, that's like an actual Pac-Man cutout."
Yeah, Chris and I were looking at the monitor. We were looking at the monitor and we saw it. So we got also shout out to Chris. He was doing the freaking Pac-Man sound effects on the broadcast. I was like, oh my goodness.
He was?
Yes.
I mean, what even is
I missed that.
I guess I can't even hear it. What's a Pac-Man sound effect? What's the noise Pac-Man makes?
It's like, I don't even know. He just eats things. So I'm just using my hand like that.
Here, hang on. Let me give text. Let me give Chris a text, and I'll bring him back on.
Okay.
But hang on. Wait.
Nash, keep it down. Oh boy.
Talking to Vinny Calgieri, the coach of the FSP team, he said that he was waiting for either Pacman or Marangola to, quote, steal a game.
Yeah.
And he said that Pacman stole a game against Philadelphia. And when he did that, he knew that was a goaltender to go for the rest of the postseason.
Yeah, and they had to turn around Friday night into Saturday and play at 9:30 a.m. One of the 4 EHLP teams was going to have to do that, so it has to be the 4 seed, even though technically the 4 seed was the regular season champion. That's just how it worked out that they had lost the Lumberjacks in the previous week. But as goes the trend that we saw in the EHL, after sweeping a team to get to the finals, playing them for the 3rd time there, it went back in the other team's favor. And honestly, I know I said before that the Avs versus Rangers EHLP game may have been one of the best. Saturday morning at 9:30, Avs and Lumberjacks may have been even better because that woke us up. And that was like, it literally felt like a do or die. This is our season game. Like that was probably the most intense we could ever start a Saturday with.
Well, it's funny because there were no actual official semifinal games for the EHLP. They were all round robins, top 2 advanced to the championship game. That was essentially a semifinal game.
Yes.
Where the winner moved on. I mean, technically the Avs could have just tied the game and moved on because of goal differential. But
Lumberjacks. Yes.
Lumberjacks. Yes. The Lumberjacks could have tied the game. My bad.
Okay.
But and Neil, not only is it tough to beat 3 teams in a row, one thing I wanted to say about the Lumberjacks BJR game from the day before, that was the first day where the Lumberjacks looked, beatable. Shots were like 8-0 in favor of the Lumberjacks in the first period against Boston. But then once Boston scored 3 unanswered in the next 3 periods, they kind of exposed the Lumberjacks, and then the Avalanche did the same thing where I don't know, I guess they weathered an early storm from the Lumberjacks, and then they just bounced back.
I think that's the crazy part, though, Anthony, is Vermont, dating back to the end of February, really, but really highlighting the postseason run up until that point, had been a wagon, right? Yeah. But then in a matter of 20 hours, you go from like being like, this is our year to, oh God, our backs are against the wall. Oh God, our season is over. Like it can happen just like that. And they could have won both those games, right? They were pushing hard in both games right into the very end. And it's just to start the day like that on Saturday, I think it helped wake us back up a little bit because we still knew we had 3 games left. And we got that little pause for the Providence Bruins practice. Anthony, I'm blanking on his name. You can tell me his name because you know the goalie, but he came up behind. He came up behind. He came up behind me to get on the ice, and he said like, "Excuse me, sir," or something like that. I turned around. I was like, "Oh my God, how tall? How tall was this guy?"
Yep, that was Brandon Bussey, and I knew him because he played. So when I graduated college in 2016 from Seton Hall, I immediately gotten the job with the New Jersey Titans of the North American Hockey League. And he was one of the 2 goaltenders for the Titans that season, at least for the first half before he got traded to Amarillo. And I went by one of the benches, above the glass. And when he turned around to get his helmet, he looked up and he smiled. He knew right away. I was like, "Brandon, do you remember me?" He's like, "Yeah, from the Titans." And, he came up in the concourse. Jefferson had said before, I saw him like, "Oh, I'm so mad at him. He knocked out Northeastern." So when Jefferson walked by, as I was talking to him, I was like, "Oh, hey, Brandon, here's Jefferson. He's really mad at you because you knocked out his team."
Anthony was trying to get my butt kicked. He's like, "Hey, Brendan, nice to meet you."
No,
how's things up there?
He is such a nice kid. And
yeah, he was. And he quickly, thanks again. He quickly shimmied that away. And he was like, "Oh," and he didn't go, "Oh, you want to fight?" He just went, "Man, that was a heck of a game against the Huskies, and what a finish with OT." And he was talking about Devin Levi, so he just shook it off, and then he was like, "Nice to meet you, man." And I was like, "I'm only kidding, man. I'm just the PA announcer for them." But so they're just another team that I love dearly on the mic. But you're a great goaltender, and you're a large man, so please don't hit me.
Anthony No Filter DePaulo right there.
Yeah. That's what good friends do. We all hear each other a little bit.
Honestly, though, it was a nice 15-minute break to reset for the next EHLP game, which could have been a dud because the Rangers knew at that point they were going on and the Little Flyers knew that they were going home, but they played inspired hockey of going out with a bang and trying to win their last game. And I know it ended in a tie, but you want to rank the games again. The Little Flyers Rangers EHLP round robin game that didn't mean anything was an excellent hockey game.
Very good. And Coach Catron told us that EHL Premier Little Flyers team was full of a lot of young guys. And he said he was glad that most of these games were, what was it that he was mentioning me about? When they have games during the week, if they have like early games, a lot of them are in high school. Like he can barely field the team because they're so young. So again, another credit to an organization to get a team that young to the biggest stage. And like you just said, they finished on a high note. So that's something that you want as a coach is, this wasn't our week, boys, but we finished on a high note, and then you work that into the off season and into what you want to do next year to develop and get better and hopefully get back next year.
But you gotta say too, they have a couple players. You say they have a young team, which they do, but they do have a couple of age out players, which is a bit unique for the P. I think one of them, Stephen Griffin.
Stephen Griffin and Tyler Rupert.
Yeah, the captain, Tyler Rupert, absolute sweet kid. He was one of the most fun people to have on the benches because I was between the benches for the P games, and he was an absolute riot. He was chirping me during the games. He was telling me stuff about his guys. They were having a good time, and like obviously they would have liked to perform a little better in this tournament, but I think they definitely were feeling like, despite not winning the last one, I think they were definitely feeling a little bit better with the fact that they were able to come back and tie it and like just hold themselves in a game like that, even though it didn't. Like it wouldn't improve their chances to be there Sunday, but I think they were all feeling a little better about like the way they ended things, despite it not being a win. And that's why I made sure to kind of pull him aside for the post-game interview, give him a nice little send-off because I know he's not going to be with us next season. So we'll wish him the best. And obviously the Little Flyers are going to be coming back red hot next season, kind of looking for a little bit of revenge after a tough tournament.
I was going to say, did it feel like a win for the Little Flyers? And also include the fact that they used all three goalies for a game. Did it feel like they got even though they didn't advance the championship Sunday and they didn't win a game, quote unquote, did they get a good experience that this young team, minus a few age outs, could be right back there next year?
I think definitely, because like honestly, I was hearing, I think it was after like the first or second game, like they were saying they just looked a little slow. Like they realized that like they weren't playing like they normally would. And I can honestly like back that up a little bit. I've seen some of their games. I remember seeing them at showcases. Like they're called Little Flyers for a reason. They can fly out there. They can like just absolutely take games, but that's not really what we were seeing in the first two games. I think that was kind of what became their detriment and kind of pushed them to not end up being there Sunday. So I think Saturday they were just kind of trying to get back to their game and the way they normally play. And I think despite it ending in a tie, I think they definitely did.
And
I know that's something that Adam Hooley talked to us about, Neil, right? In one of the press conferences was you had asked him a question about getting to the Frozen Finals last year, but not getting to the end. And he was one of the coaches. I know obviously Adam in the EHL, not the EHLP, but still same league that still, makes sense. That he stayed and watched, and he felt like his team benefited from getting as far as they did last year and missing the final days. He thinks helped that team grow and persevere during the tough times this year, and then they come out with the championship. So there's a coaching point right there.
And that's a great transition because they were the first semifinal against the Wolves, and it was kind of a funny, fitting first matchup because the first win of the season for the Wolves, which feels like 2 decades ago, was against the 87s way back at the September showcase, really? Right? That was their very first win. And everyone knows how they started. They started slowly, right? And
I think it was 1-9, if I remember correctly.
Just the unique paths, right? That was the Wolves' first win to go through the roller coaster that they went through and go through the teams that they went through in order to get to semifinal Saturday was a crazy story for them. And on the flip side, for the 87s to go through the ups of just this ridiculous point streak during the regular season to the downs of a losing streak where it's like, is it still really #our time? Because it doesn't feel like it right now. And then both to really just go through those rides, 2 wild card teams, the 2 wild card winners to face off on semifinal Saturday. I thought that was kind of a fun first matchup.
Yeah, and actually that's a great point too to bring up, Neil, is that we talked to Coach Woolley and Coach Kuhns and Andrew Trimble, obviously Coach Woolley and Matt Keenan are the co-owners, and they said, if we're going to do this, Jeff, we're going to have to play 4 days in a row. So New Jersey gets all the way to Championship Sunday and wins playing 4 days in a row. They get that first day off on Wednesday. They play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I don't think their game let up at all. They didn't show any signs of being exhausted or banged up that much. I know poor TJ Branish's skate blade fell off 3 times, and that was frustrating the heck out of him, but they eventually got that fixed. But I mean, they pretty much just kept on moving and just blasting through teams and played every which way of hockey you want to play. You want to play physical, you want to play speed, goaltending. They were tight. They were suffocating teams. And then so were the New England Wolves. I mean, they were tight. They had guys that we talked about, Eli Brubaker, right? A guy that struggled with injuries, ended up getting into 10 premier games for Connor Bates, broke his ankle. So he only ended up playing 4 games in the EHL, only had 1 assist. And he comes up with a goal, and it's just, like Anthony said earlier, it's not a surprise when you see those lower guys, those glue guys, those that step up and have big moments, but still just kind of astonishing to see the way the week worked out.
Yeah.
I think the Wolves came a long way. And honestly, like, if you look at it really, I think they end up kind of switching with the Avs this season, which was kind of interesting to see and kind of look at, because the Wolves kind of started off, like you said, they were struggling to kind of find their footing and find like what really worked to kind of keep them balanced in the win column and get things going. Whereas like the Avs just started off red hot and kept going. But then the second half of the season comes around and there was just a huge switch between those 2 teams. The Avs kind of became the ones, like, they were still at the top, but they had a lot more moments than they did in the first half where they kind of struggled to stay where they needed to be to get to playoffs and secure a good spot. Whereas the Wolves were just like, all right, we finally, I don't know what it was that they talked about or did, but they just took off in the second half of the season and never turned back. And like, yes, they were a wild card team, but they deserved to be there. They had to go through 100%. A lot of teams and play a lot more games than most to be able to get to the playoffs, and they absolutely made the most of it. They may not have been there on Championship Sunday, but they had an absolute showing at that tournament, and they should definitely be feeling pretty good after that.
It was hard to see them and Worcester go home. Those teams deserve to get to Championship Sunday too. Unfortunately, we can only have 2. So that's a great point, Lauren. And actually about the Avs too. I mean, that's something we all talked about all season long, is that they were just right out of the gate doing what they usually do. #roll Avs roll through everybody. And was that an issue for them, that they didn't really play a lot of meaningful games for the most of the season? And then, yes, they did flip the switch when they got to the playoffs, but then you got to flip another switch because it's basically 2 playoffs, all the games before Frozen Finals. Then you get to Frozen Finals, and they just couldn't flip that switch. Everyone else did.
They scored 1 goal in 2 games. It's just not
Tony, Carlson, Hotchkiss, all those guys. That would have been a good bowl prediction. Someone would have been on a poster board that none of those guys are going to do much at all. They're going to have a few points and that's it. Everyone would have been like, "Are you okay? Are you breathing the same oxygen we are?" But wow.
And it's when that first semifinal game ended. Well, my bold prediction was already over. Jeff's bold prediction that ended at that point because he had said Wolves on Championship Sunday. The other 2 bold predictions were still alive. So we get to the nightcap, and we knew that Lauren's bold prediction would come true because train versus train equaled one of the trains winning, right? And getting to Sunday. And I think the way that the night game took off and unfolded on Saturday night was kind of the storyline of the week. And teams that got ahead stayed ahead. We didn't see teams come back and take the lead. And when you look at a team like Walpole, when they are ahead and they are leading, they just shut it down defensively. And you get so frustrated that you can't do anything until you're Matt Pimenta with under a minute left to go and the goalie is pulled and you just get one that kind of makes you feel better. But Walpole defensively on Saturday night to punch their ticket to Championship Sunday. I mean, it starts with Bosher, but they were so good in that game.
Yeah, suffocating, I think was a good word I used for their defense at times, and that's what they were, like you just said. But on the flip side of it too, their offense kind of suffocated at times too. When they were down, they couldn't create the offense. I mean,
Yeah.
look back at a trade that they made early in the year. Josh Grund was someone that put up a lot of points for Walpole and a decent amount of points for the Boston Junior Rangers too. I mean, I know they got a couple of guys and they tried to replace him, but I don't know if they truly did. They just didn't have those extra snipers. Justin Guelph, I know, got a little banged up in that Worcester game. He was someone that I thought I'd see more of. Asher Conley was a nice addition, but he kind of dried up at points. So they just didn't have enough offensively. It was just kind of stunk to see.
The Walpole Express scored 5 goals in that Frozen Finals.
Yeah.
4 of them came from defensemen.
And the fifth one,
crazy.
Anthony?
3 of them
Overland.
coming from Jared Overland. And the one goal from
Yeah.
a forward was Alex Pratt, which was an empty net goal.
That's Saturday night. That was their only goal from a forward, right? Which is just
And that can only get you so long. It can
Yeah.
only
It's
get you
another,
so
it's
far.
another situation, much like the Avs EHLP. You have to give major stick taps to Jack Boschert. He absolutely
man.
kept him in that.
That save in the second
and
period
he's-
was the save of the year, where
Oh,
he
yeah,
reached
and he-
back with his stick.
Oh,
he was
that was
like
a double save. Me and Anthony, me and Tyler were like, oh, we just like lost our minds because that was a 2-saver. Because
Yeah.
then the
Oh,
puck
yeah.
was sitting there and he just took his glove calmly, smothered it, and didn't let anyone come barreling in for any rebound chances. But
it kind of reminded me of the All-Star Weekend a little bit, where he just like came in there and was just like, this is gonna be my time. I'm gonna have like an absolute showing. And he was just putting on
Blue
a
boys,
clinic.
whoop, whoop, whoop.
He
Oh
was
my
just
God.
Blue
so
boys.
great, and he was having an absolute blast.
I mean,
he's a great kid, and that broke my heart though to see. Oh, speaking of guys that he sat out there that whole entire championship ceremony. He was the last Walpole Express off the ice. He sat in the corner.
I
watched
made
the
it a
whole
point
thing.
to make sure I went over and said something to him, because I was like,
I
I
saw
wanted to make
that.
sure all the guys got to him first. 'Cause I was like, that's their
Yeah.
time, that's their goalie. But I was like, I have to say something to this kid. Like he made this season fun. Like all stars we just talked about, like he was great. This tournament, absolutely great. Like super great kid. Like just the absolute best person you want to have in your net. And to just like the fact that he sat out there so long, you could tell like how much this season meant to him. And I was like, I gotta make sure he knows how good he did. Like he was like it's a lot harder on the goalies, obviously, because they probably take it the worst, because they're like, oh, I like they feel like they lost the game for their team. But it's like,
Oh, without a doubt.
it's a group effort. It's never it's the classic, there's no I in team, but like it's always a group effort. It's never on one person. Like, yes, they're gonna beat themselves up, they're the goalies, but like it's not on them. But and he carried that team there. And I was like, dude, like you were huge for this team. You're a bit like one of the biggest reasons why they got here and turned things around this season. So like
Yep.
it was tough to see.
They can't score goals. They can stop goals from coming in. Yes, you can try to score goals as a goalie. Go ahead, shoot it the full 200 feet with another goalie in the net. But I mean, they can't create the offense for their teams, right? And
Yeah.
And we also mentioned too, we've talked about with MVP, there's a lot of guys that would have won it if Colin Bell wasn't around, and if Nathan Miller wasn't around, the 2-time defending goaltender of the year. Jack Boschert might have been a guy that we would put up there.
Yeah, that's for sure. And one more point before we get to championship Sunday. I just want to say, because Jeff, you kind of said it earlier, what a year it was for the Wolves. What a year it was for the Railers too, because that's who Walpole
Yeah.
beat on
Oh.
Saturday night. And for the Railers to be
That hurt.
A lot of people.
that close in just their third year, I'm sure the one thing that Sean Bertoni is thinking now is to lose Damon Dulac as early as they did in the finals to an injury, that hurt them in the long run, because he was
That
such
was
a big
hard. That was
Yeah.
so hard, because like I loved watching during the regular season. He was great, and I feel like we definitely all should have picked him way more for fantasy. He was
Yeah.
awesome. But I
Yeah.
remember hearing from Trevor too. He was saying that like we don't know what it is, but he was saying that just there's something about playoffs and finals that Dulac just, as you say, hits a switch and he just absolutely goes off. Like we thought he was good in the regular season, but playoffs turn around and he's just like, I'm gonna shoot up and you guys are all gonna see it. Like he's just absolutely someone you want on a playoff team, because he will score you goals in bunches and do all the right things to get you the wins. And I think when you lose someone like that in such a crucial time, it can be detrimental if you don't handle it correctly. And unfortunately, that was try to say that could be like something that did kind of hurt him a little bit, because you can't prepare for something like that. You don't expect people to get hurt. You don't plan for that. So it's like when something like that does happen, you have to try to figure out ways to work around it and other people to step up and fill that spot. And clearly just didn't end up being enough for them at the final game on Saturday.
And him and Oliveri led the team, or led the league in points going into that. And he was coming in injured too. He was battling something else and then took that massive hit in front of the bench and got knocked out. And well, we already talked about it, with Adam Hooley watching Championship Sunday last year. I don't know if Coach Bertoni was there or not, but I know for a fact if he was not there, he was watching it at home. So maybe Worcester takes a page out of New Jersey's book from last year, and maybe we see them next year on Championship Sunday.
Yeah, maybe we do, because that gets us to that final day. And it was a little bit easier for us because it was only 2 games, right? We had just come off 3 days with 4 games in a row, right? Where we're starting early and ending late, right? So we get to the 2 games on Sunday, and I actually left shortly after puck drop to go get lunch on Sunday. Puck drop with the first the EHLP game, Avs versus Rangers. I was gone for 22 minutes, I think. I walked back in the building.
It was already a 3-2 game.
I'm like, what did I miss? I literally said to Joe, I go, what did I miss? And he goes, you missed everything.
So much.
Like, okay, Anthony, you were calling it. Take me through, because I wasn't there. Take me through what happened in the first period.
Oh my God. So, I mean, Boston outshot the Avalanche 17-2 in that period. So they came out pretty strong. Jack Powers took a shot from the point. I think it was Brody Ingersoll who deflected a puck in. So it was a bit of a weird goal. So I'm thinking, okay, Boston's up and running. 6 seconds later, Connor McCowell for the Avalanche comes in. He takes a shot that careens off a Boston defender, bounces down on the ice, and then goes top shelf. And I look at Chris, who's doing color commentary, and I go, buckle up. This is going to be an amazing game.
Yep.
And then Anthony Viola gets the penalty shot. He scores. And then just a few minutes later, the Avalanche again respond. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, yes, like this is the game of the tournament right now. Like right off the bat. And then Boston gets one more to take the lead. And then after that, nothing.
And then they were like, honestly, Neil's back, so we're not going to do anything. We're not going
to. Well, hang on. There was that one goal that we thought was going to count, where Ryder Kunin scored on the power play, but Lane Brubaker-Egner touched the goalie, Mitchell Taylor, and they actually got to use the overhead cameras.
Controversy.
Yeah.
We brought replay in.
Yeah.
And also Championship Sunday, I was with controversy again.
Shout out to Gino Binda, Jr. and Senior, because Chris and I were talking to him during the intermission. We asked them, okay, why was the goal overturned? And he said, because there was contact in the crease. And I was like, oh, so Taylor didn't get the opportunity to make the save? He goes, no. The key phrase is that he did not have the opportunity to play his position. Yeah. He said, if you do not give a goaltender a chance to play their position and to reset, then that is enough to overturn a goal.
Yep. And not just...
But then, Brubaker-Egner, who committed the goalie interference, ended up tying the game anyway.
Yes. And I want to get to that in a second. But it's not just the 2 Genos that deserve credit. It was actually kind of funny for me to bring Pete Soros back, who was...
We all know. Let's say Lauren, we've all worked with Pete before.
Pete was my boss when I was with the Hockey East in the 2012-2013 season.
I saw him give you a huge hug at one point when you were freaking out about something.
To bring him in and the experience that he has running, the instant replay rooms, like all the way up to the Frozen 4 Division 1, right? Joe and I had a lot of trust in him. We hoped that we didn't have to use it, right? But we knew that if we had to use it with Pete there and the 2 Genos, when that call was, the goal was overturned, we were like, you know what? Like, we trust that they got it right?
Yeah. And he was with UMass Lowell and UNH.
Yes.
And actually, I went in and said hi to him to Neil. I was like, hey, Pete, in the war room. He goes, Jefferson, it's the situation room, not the war room. But continue with what you were going to say.
No, it was just funny how it worked out that I missed 5 goals in the first period. And then Lane Brubaker-Egner was like, yes, Neil, I saw you and Joe walk down with the trophy, but it's not that time yet because I'm going to tie this game up late. I didn't even of all the goals that were scored in the EHLP championship game, I never once saw one go in because I'm in the hallway behind trying to get down in the position when I hear the eruption. And I'm like, you know what, Joe? They just tied the game. and then you fast forward to overtime and we're trying to wait while we're tucked in that hallway behind where Lauren was standing, and I don't even know what you call that spot, the in between the benches spot or whatever. And Mike Pachetto scores a minute and 10 in. I literally did not see one goal go in the net from the EHLP championship. But the Rangers won.
Wild game. That was such
that
a
was
game.
Yeah, that was a wild game. And like the goal we just talked about that was overturned, like those two names we said, Radikunen and Leighton Brubaker-Egner, two huge names for that team in that tournament. And like the one day when Lane had like 2 goals, I talked to Vinny the next game after that, and I was like, what? I'm like, that kid is just ridiculous. He goes, oh yeah, he's like, he's got his swagger back and he's turning it on. And I'm like, oh, that kid was feeling so confident in those games. He was just all over the score sheet. He just was doing the right things. And like, he may be a little bit of a smaller guy, but he is just flying out there. He buzzes around everybody and he is in the right place at the right time and knows how to get the puck where it needs to be. And he was a huge guy for them.
He deserves so much credit because Aaron Racino was injured early in the second half of the season. Right. So the Avalanche were missing one of their best scorers, but he still goes ahead and, Brubaker-Egner steps up, and he was such a big reason why the Avs were able to get to championship Sunday.
Good point about Racino. That was a forgotten man. That was a really important piece. And I remember picking Brubaker-Egner. I got chirped by, I think it was Ryan Green from the Walpole Express, listening to all the shows, and said, hey, Jeff, if you picked me, I probably could have gotten you those few points to get over Lauren. But which again, boys, keep it coming. That's why we do this show. We stir the pot, like give it to us. Yeah. I know I picked Brubaker-Egner, and he's actually, I think, Neil, one of my more favorite names to say. I might have to add that.
It was funny that you say something like that, Jeff. I heard the same thing from Jared Packman. He was like, I think it was after like his first or second win in the tournament. He was like, you guys got to start picking me more for fantasies. Like everyone's just kind of leaving me there. And we're like, and he was saying it to me, I was like, I am not the person you want to be saying that to. I'm like, goalies were my kryptonite this season. I was like, I told him, I was like, with the way it was going for me with the EHL goalies, I was like, I was not taking it. Like, I love goalies, but I'm like, I was not taking a chance on a P goalie because I'm like, with the way it went with my EHL guys, I'm like, I was not trying that because I'm like, I clearly couldn't find the luck. And I'm like, I don't want to ruin it for somebody by picking them.
Look what Neil just brought up.
Yes, because Pachetto scores a minute and 10 into overtime. So the Rangers win their third EHLP title in 7 years, right? To go along with 3 regular season titles. They have done something very special at the EHLP level. And I'm sure a number of those guys, Coach DiCaprio can't wait to bring up to the EHL level. But before we get to the EHL championship game, I think it's interesting to take a look back at the records that got set, because when you go to
a lot of 21-22s here.
I was just gonna say, Jeff, when you go back through, look at the top 5 scorers in EHLP history in the postseason. That's 21-22 right there. Trent King, Max Morris, Anthony Viola. That's all this postseason. 15
Francis
points.
Hamlin and Arhip Sidorovich, also a 12.
Crazy. Like Max Morris, most goals in a single EHLP postseason. Bobby Voss may have got that record if they had gotten past the Avalanche on Saturday's quote-unquote semifinal game, right? There's Arhip right there again. Then you go to the assists. Trent King is there. Mitchell Taylor, the most wins ever by a goalie in the postseason with 7. Josh Kotai had 4. He was excellent throughout the postseason.
He was
for the EHLP Lumberjacks. I don't know if some of these goals against average numbers will be topped ever, but Cote had a 1.69. He was almost unbeatable throughout the postseason. Mitchell Taylor right there, 1.85. So we're still waiting for a goalie to get more than one shutout in a single EHLP postseason. And I bring up the shutouts because there was a record set in the EHL. We'll get to that. But when you look back on the EHLP postseason, easily you could say this is one of the best in the 7-year history of that division. But that takes us to the EHL championship game. And for the first time ever, it actually built in some extra time between the 2 championship games. And for a moment, I felt
See,
like
we're all learning here.
yes, for a moment I felt like
Staff included.
Anthony's like the scheduler's finally getting better. But for a moment I was like, this game's going to overtime. Everything that I tried to do was just going to fall on its face, but it ended so quickly. And honestly, the ceremony was pretty quick afterwards that we started right on time. We literally started right on time when we wanted to. And in that EHL championship game, I brought up before what it was like for a team when Walpole would get ahead. When the 87s got ahead on championship Sunday, this is no shot at the Express, but it just felt like they just shut it down defensively. And Walpole, their biggest chance came off the stick of Anthony Percy, I want to say, with about 6.5 or so left to go.
Yep.
And when Haynes made that save, I looked at Joe and said, this is over.
Yeah, I think so. And I do remember I actually said that as a color comment, and then I looked like a fool because New Jersey was on the penalty kill, and I think it was Atkinson just took it up the wing on a break, and I think it was a 1-on-3, and he decided to rush the zone, crash the net, get a couple of shots off, and I was like, okay, I was just saying you might want to start putting your foot on the brakes and not keep slamming on the gas pedal. But for the most part, yeah, they kind of just buckled down, and rightfully so. With as good as Owen Haynes was, I remember he obviously was the goalie on our all tournament team, and I did the quick math, and it was his goals against for the week was 0.95. Another theme that we had this week: goalies with goals against under 1. That is stupid.
And when you look at the number here, so he had a 1.13 for the entire postseason, which just shows that he was even better than that at the finals, right? To be that good in the postseason, but be even better in Providence in a stretch where you played 3 of the 4 games in 3 of 4 days. Like Owen Haynes, there's many reasons why the 87s won their first title. Owen Haynes is right there towards the top.
Yeah, and I know it wasn't an easy. Well, I remember we had a long conversation, right, Neil, about Haynes and Boschert. Like we were even chewing on giving it to Boschert in a loss because of how amazing Jack Boschert was and the amount of pucks that Jack Boschert saw.
Oh, I gotta pull that number up.
It was, I think by the end, it was close to 300. If I'm not, I remember Tyler had said at one point going into the championship game, I think it was, he had made 270 something saves on 280 shots, or it was high 200s.
Here you go. He finished the postseason with 293 saves. So maybe I have to go
303 shots.
Maybe I have to go back to this EHL record book and add in a column just for postseason saves, because I don't know if we'll ever see 293 again. That is out of this world.
Instead of saying Thomas Walker, now we say Jack Boschert
again next season. We could see it again next season. So,
hey, Thomas Walker, I'm sorry, Jack Boschert's in town. We now dropped Thomas Walker from our.
True.
We said he needed an IV years ago. Boschert needs an IV.
Oh, two.
We have one more opportunity to see him.
Maybe he's motivated to come back and win it all.
Come on, Jack, please come back.
So much fun.
I know his dad Kevin's a big fan of our podcast.
Oh, he was
on social media.
He was awesome. I ended up meeting him at the end of the game, and he was such a sweet guy, and he was thanking me for going over and talking to him at the end of the game. And I was like, I told him too, I was like, your son was so much fun to have around this season, so fun to watch, like really good kid. Like it was so good.
Yeah, I can't thank the parents enough for all the kind words. Parker James's dad came over and talked to me and Tyler and said what a good job the league's done just as a whole. It's not just us, it's everybody. It's the coaches, the players. Like it takes an army to run, as we saw, that to run a whole season, not even just the Frozen Finals, but it's been noticed. And Mr. James, I think he had said he has a younger son, and he was like, I'm going to send my younger son through the EHL system. And that's like, it means the world to all of us that work for this league and have for years and work our butts off.
So to look at some of the numbers that got set while we were in Providence, you have to factor in at the EHL, the postseason used to actually be longer. We used to have 3 sets of best of 3 rounds, then a best of 5. So a number like 9 wins, like MacVale had in 2016-17, that may never be matched because you may not have a chance to win 9 games, right? Like Owen Haynes probably could have won 1 or 2 games more if it had gone in a different direction for the 87s, but 9 is a tough number to catch. But in terms of, Drew Oliveri, 15 points, Matt Zdanowicz, 15 points, Matt Pimentel had 8 goals. He was only 5 off from a record that was set by Alex Peterson in the 2016-17 season. And then when you look at some of these goals against average numbers, like the Rangers, I know didn't get there, but Miller was excellent for them. And we go back to a previous episode talking about his injury in that wild card game. And if he doesn't get injured, right? I'm not saying anything against the Wolves, but are we looking at a totally different storyline?
Right, and nothing against Chris Jackson, who played his butt off in relief and literally hadn't played in a month. And they were like, "Hey, Chris, our season's on the line. Our 1A goalie just got hurt. 1B, here you go." And in you go. And he took them all the way to overtime and even got a piece of that Kevin Johnson game-winning goal. Yeah, ended up trickling past him. But I mean, very good point, Neil.
And then look at the shutouts. We want to talk about seeing 21-22 at the top. Kulhanek 3, Owen Haynes 2, Nathan Miller 2. So if there was in the EHL, if there was one category where the records were set, it was the shutouts this year. And we get back to the bold predictions. And Anthony, I know that your short-handed goals bold prediction didn't work out. Maybe you should have just kept with the S's and said shutouts, because we had quite a few shutouts in Providence.
Roll back the tape. Wait, I think you did say shutouts, not short-handed shutouts.
No. I mean, well, one thing I do want to bring up, you were talking about Owen Haynes. The one thing I would say, I don't want to take too much credit away from him because he was really good, but also credit to the defense. TJ Branish, Matt Herrick, Hayden Watson, they blocked so many shots. I looked at, during that 5-minute power play for Walpole, I looked at Gino Binda, and I said, it's a block party right now because they're just blocking shots. Branish especially. Adam Hooley gave him credit after their semifinal win against the Wolves because he's a defender that doesn't put up too many points, but he will lay down the body and he will block shots and make it easier for his goaltender.
You guys ready for the chirp of the year that I got afterwards? I'm bringing stuff to the car, walking past the 87's bus, and Matt Herrick puts his hand on my shoulder and says,
"Oh, I saw that."
He goes, Ducks in 3, because that was my first round bracket.
And then they made you take a picture, and they put their arms around. Come on,
wait, hold on,
Ducks in 3. Say
hold
cheese.
on. I gotta find it. Hold on, I'm gonna find it so you can see it. Because hold on, oh man, you gotta see the picture. It was good. Like, because I didn't even see where he was coming from. And then to turn around and hold on, here we go. I got it now.
He said it in a nice way too. He wasn't.
Yes, he said it in a nice way, right? Like, look at here's me with Herrick and Robbie Seawagon, who jumped right in the picture as soon as
2022 champion 87s
right on the bus already, right? I thought it was so good, just the way he was like Ducks in 3, but it was a fitting end to a great week. And I would be remiss to not go through the entire staff that helped put this on. And I know, there's been some messages that have been sent so far, not on the podcast. Tyler did all the EHL play-by-play and did the EHLP post-game articles and the live tweeting. Anthony, who's with us right now, of course, called all the EHLP games, did the post-game article and live tweeting for the EHL. Jeff, your PA voice, man, I don't know how you still have it. Like, 16 games in. I hope that only having to do color for the EHL gave you a little bit of a rest there.
It did, so thank you. That was a very smart, wise decision by you to do this rotation that we found. That's perfect.
I didn't get to look as much. Chris did the same thing that he did last year with the inside the glass during the EHL and the EHLP color. Did Chris have the arm wave going like he did in years past? Okay.
Yeah, he did. It was a lot of looks too, because like we're closer too, because last year he was across the way. So that's why I think the hand wave, but a few more just like looks up.
Lauren, the intermission interviews, the inside the glass and the intermission interviews for the EHLP, just the variety of that. And I honestly think the best part watching the interviews go down was that on numerous occasions, the full teams stayed on the ice to wait for their teammates that were being interviewed. I
It
thought
was
that was kind of unique.
so fun. I think the Avs one was definitely one of my favorites because, like, it was like I was saying, I hadn't planned on packing, but I was more than happy to talk to him because his teammate comes over and goes, "Oh, you're getting packing?" I'm like, "Do you want me to?" He goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "All right." I'm like, "Send him with I think it was Brubaker Regner I asked for that time. I was like, "Send them both over." And and you watched the mom Miss Pac-Man toss the little Pac-Man over, and they all came up behind him and literally they just like erupted as soon as I started talking, and they were like, "Yeah!" They were throwing the Pac-Man around. They were all just so excited to be there and having a fun time. And it's hilarious too because I was talking with Pac-Man after that, and he was like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "I didn't even know the guys were gonna do that." And I was like, "Yeah, they told me about it." And I'm like, it's one of those times too where I knew what was going on behind me, but there's been times I have no idea what's going on behind me. And like I get so into the interview that like I don't see anything else that's going on, and there's always something funny happening in the background. And I think it was either during that one or one of the other post-game ones with the Avs that it was their captain David Hassel apparently quite a few times skated behind them with his helmet on backwards. I had no idea until Pac-Man pointed that out. He's like, "Did you not see that?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" So I pulled it back up. I'm like, "Oh my God." He literally just straight up had it backwards and just multiple times was just passing through the background with it on. And I'm like, this is great. Like, I love stuff like that. I love when guys are happy for their teammates and are able to have fun with it. And yeah, like the interviews are like kind of serious, but like when it's a post-game one and you just like had a big game, like have fun with it. Like it's meant to be fun.
That's the biggest key is when it comes to playing hockey, you have to have fun, and the kids had fun, especially with the interviews this week.
That's what I ended all of my pregame championship interviews with. I said, "Congrats on getting here." I said, "Good luck." And I said, "Have fun." And like some of the guys, I feel like didn't really pick up on it much, but I know Robbie Seawagon, as soon as I was like, "Have fun," he just like lit up and he was just like, "Thanks." And they were they loved hearing it because it's like, yeah, you want the championship, but like you're here with your team. You've been with them all season. You've been having fun. Like just continue to have fun. That's what it's all about.
Continuing on with Trevor, who was the videographer who's been with us all year and did stuff last year. I mean, the thing about Trevor with his video is he keeps one-upping himself, right? And like he turned out
on the ice for the shootouts this year. That was new.
Like he turned out some stuff over during the finals that just absolutely blew me away. It was also the first time that we actually got to have Bob D'Alessio at the finals. Of course, last year,
that was awesome.
Right before he had a stroke, which kept him from being able to go. So to have him come, bring Owen Johnson with him from the Chiefs EHLP team.
And we drove to Newington Arena last year, Neil, to grab those jerseys and stuff that we had autographed for our award show. And his daughter Anastasia
was helping out, and she jumped over. Really cool. Yeah, she jumped into the scorer's box to help out at times. Where I had Pam Page, who is a local down in Rhode Island. Jeff Mazzone came down. He did so many games throughout the year. So I wanted to make
Christian, our referee, his son,
he helped out the entire Pilpel family. Ken, Brian, and Joy helped out. I mean, you guys all know Rochi, the trainer. He's a huge asset throughout the week.
First name Sean for anyone that doesn't know.
Yes. Dan and Margaret Hickling. I mean, they've did 5 of the events for us. I mean, they've done the finals every year we've had them, right? Yep. And then I brought in an additional photographer in Rob Rasmussen, who I knew through Quinnipiac. My favorite post that he had was the picture of Everest Schneider with the championship trophy, and he wrote Schneider at Schneider. I thought that was awesome. Cool. Alexis, who ran the apparel table, like I could go on and on and on. There were so many people that helped make this event that special. A huge thanks to Eric Durson, who's our main contact at Providence. The staff that he had down below in the Zamboni, RJ, Steve, Bob, like it just. That
facility is like no other. We hope we can keep coming back there.
The officials, the players, the coaches, the parents, like I think I got everyone almost, right?
And Dave Thoreau.
And Dave Thoreau and Hockey TV.
Those cameras, having all those angles, the replays.
Yeah, and thank you to every, like the production, and thank you for making it so that we didn't have a lot of leftovers with our meals too, right?
Yeah, too.
Because they took care of that for us. But
there's a lot of people there.
Like I think I almost covered everyone. Like this was the best finals we've ever had. And a thank you again to you guys for riding it out with me and on this podcast. I mean, what a year. We're going to take a couple weeks off now, and then we're going to get back into what we do every off season and go team by team, because there's just the right amount of teams that if we go week by week, it leads right into next season. and we'll start with the New Jersey 87s in a couple of weeks here, the EHL champions. And because
Probably
we're
the All
going,
Anthony episode.
yes, Anthony, it'll be Anthony, and we'll bring Chris
Take
and
it away.
Willie, and we'll get off. But with that, and what we'll do for every team this offseason, because we're going into our 10th year as a league, get prepared, because all offseason, we're going to do the top 10 players in team history for each of our franchises. So that's what's to come. Again, thank you guys again. What a year it was, and just thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to The E-Show. Learn more at easternhockeyleague.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, be sure to subscribe and get notified when next week's podcast is released.